Hello and welcome to the ID Talk podcast. I'm Alex Perella. I'm here with my lovely co-host Tony Bitsionis. Hello, Tony.
Hello, Alex.
And we have a friend of the pod joining us today. Very exciting, Danielle VanZandt from Frost and Sullivan. Danielle is the research manager and program director for security for Frost and Sullivan. Friend of the pod, as I mentioned, regular guest. Always brings a lot of insight about the industry, and this time fresh off RSA. So we're going to be asking about that. So Danielle, welcome. Happy to have you back.
Thank you so much. My feet are happy to be back from RSA. I will say that.
I bet. Yeah, it's been a while since we've been to one of these conferences, but it's always exhausting. But we'll get to that. Before we do, we have another special guest, probably going to become a regular guest, the latest member of the ID Tech team, Dave Barclay. Dave, hello.
Hey everyone, I'm Dave Barclay. I'm the new host of ID Talk. Um, just kidding, it's still Alex. And I'm a performer and comedian who's also interested in tech, and I'm happy to be the newest member of the ID Tech team. But I don't know that much about identity or biometrics or security, so my job on the podcast is to be a bit of a buffoon that asks dumb questions. And hopefully, our podcast listeners who know something but don't know everything can go on like a learning journey with me.
Wow.
Well, Dave, welcome.
Thanks,
Uh,
Tony.
yeah, Dave, we know each other. You are not, in fact, a buffoon, I will say,
Oh, thank you. That's
off the top.
a really nice thing for you to
But
say.
but you are new to this industry, so it's notoriously got a steep learning curve. It's a pretty complex space, so there's going to be a lot of opportunities for you to ask questions, and it's great to have you. And uh, I know you're not afraid to look stupid, so that's a big plus as well.
Thank you. That is a big part of my career up till now, is looking stupid. And I'm excited for this steep climb up the learning curve, but I'm told Danielle will tell me everything I need to know, so I'm very happy about that.
No
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
Well, Dave,
Well,
I always tell my new analysts that join that security is like drinking from a fire hose. So it's going to take a little while. It's going to be a lot all at once, but you'll
Okay,
get there.
that's great.
um,
Fire hoses are one of my favorite ways to enjoy any beverage.
all right, so yeah, we'll have a little Q&A session later, but maybe just to start, we can kind of get your bird's eye view of RSA, Danielle. I think it's always in California, right?
Yes. So RSA, they actually just rebranded this year. So it's RSAC now.
Ah,
But it's always in San Francisco. So basically, it takes over the entire downtown district of San Francisco for that entire week. So,
what would you say, or like I don't know, top five or top several like takeaways, big themes that you saw at this year's
oh,
conference?
so there were two main things that I was there for my research. And then I'll get into kind of the broader ones. Um, so I study cyber physical system security. So that's basically the rebrand of operational technology. So that was one area that I was focused on at the show. Um, the areas of identity security that we'll probably talk a little bit more in detail. I was exploring a little bit of that because we have some new subject matter we're going to be looking at in research this year. Um, and then as far as some of my other colleagues, I mean, there's constantly discussions about, transitioning to cloud security, how to secure that. A lot of different specific facets of AI security. So not just only about putting AI in your security system, but also being able to, like, what is the AI allowing you to do? There's a lot of talk of agentic AI, which is kind of the big buzzword now. Um, Literally, there was one vendor that had an ice cream truck that called the agentic scoops.
Okay.
For some reason, that was hilarious to me when I saw it on the street. And then also there was discussion about like securing your AI models. Like, so that's more on the supply chain side. These are some like highly technical areas that a lot more of like my cybersecurity team members follow. I do not know them as well, so I didn't look at them too much. And then there were also the random things about RSA that are always kind of fun is seeing how crazy they'll go with their booths. Gravedigger, the monster truck was there. Got a selfie there. They had puppies at one booth, and then they had goats at one booth. And
Wow.
I happened to see this great moment of the goats watching a service dog and like forming this interspecies friendship while I was there. So that was a fun little highlight too.
This sounds wild. Why were there
RSA is
ghosts?
wild.
Okay, well, that's a lot. I guess, well, we want to get to AI. I mean, that's always something I'm kind of honing in on, and I'm honestly a little self-conscious about it at this point. So maybe before we get to that, we can kind of look at some of the more conventional stuff we're used to talking about, like, uh, I mean, RSA, I think, has a lot of like CISOs and cybersecurity like pros who are in attendance. Did you get a sense of the awareness level of the need for biometric authentication or like post-password authentication? Was that a big discussion point this year?
Definitely post password in the sense of, multi-factor is becoming so much more common.
Mhm.
Trying to have multiple ways to identify who a person is beyond just a password, whether it's a biometric or whether it's some other means of verification or behavior. There's also, hardware tokens as well. Like I spoke with some of the FIDO authenticators like Ubico. So all facets are there. Really didn't see a lot of like password managers there anymore.
Hmm.
I think we've kind of moved beyond that to more comprehensive identity governance. And so that's why we're not seeing like a one pass hanging out there anymore, but you're going beyond that. You're going to a more structured process of validating your users and knowing that they're true and authentic.
Mhm. Do you think that passkeys are a big part of that?
I think it's going to be big, but it depends on the industry. So I saw some interesting use cases around like workforce identity management and the use of passkeys to like verify new employees or verify contractors. Just because those passkeys are able to be better managed and there's a little bit more control in knowing that the individual who finally receives that passkey is actually the individual who was promised the passkey.
Hmm.
So there were a lot more kind of process oriented procedures that were in place to ensure that the human who ends up holding that passkey is the human who is supposed to be holding it. So those were a couple of interesting ones that I hadn't really thought about. And so I heard about those use cases coming from like bigger authenticators. So workforces of like 50,000 employees distributed remotely, and they're able to do these transitions pretty quick.
Hmm.
So I thought that was a really interesting use case to look into a little bit.
I'm also curious, like, did you encounter, I just don't know, I've never been to RSA, so I don't know what the kind of vibe is like, but was there a lot of discussion about geopolitical threats like hack attacks from foreign adversaries, stuff like that?
Yeah, that's actually become a really common threat vector, not just in like the identity space, but in all of the areas that my team focuses on research wise. That geopolitical factor has been like a key component being added in threat intelligence feeds.
Hmm.
So that was another big area I was looking at the show as well. Um, if you don't have that geopolitical context, it's hard to understand what actual threats are most relevant to your business, because how do you prioritize a threat if you don't exactly know where it's happening or who is potentially carrying it out?
Mhm.
So that was a really common vector as well. Geopolitics also comes up in like, blocking users, blocking machines, verifying connectivity across, you know, machine to machine or a user to a remote location, those kinds of things as well. CISA was there. I didn't stop by the booth, but I wanted to,
Mhm.
just because all the changes that have been happening with that department, I wanted to see kind of which missions were being prioritized at the show.
Actually, can I interrupt there? Because we have not actually covered this in depth, I don't think, but I've heard chatter about the CISA stuff. It's like this is like budget cut type stuff is affecting
Yes.
them, right? Okay, yeah, I'm
It's
curious.
it's not just budget cuts, it's workforce reduction. This is a whole outcropping of the DOGE strategy in the United States. A lot of cybersecurity professionals within CISA were let go.
Mm,
Um, don't know how permanent it is because there's so many lawsuits kind of roaming around with the federal workforce at the moment. But there are concerns about that potentially affecting a lot of the threat intelligence sharing and the critical infrastructure data sharing. Those programs, CISA was actually a really big linchpin towards not just the government cybersecurity strategy, but also like broader critical infrastructure,
mm.
at least within the US. And I'm sure some of those data sharing agreements carried over to allied nations. I don't know how those are being affected at the moment, but there have been concerns among the US cyberspace that there are probably a lot more situational awareness gaps right now because of that.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a great time to be a foreign adversary hacker. Awesome.
Unfortunately.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground so far, so I want to give our new guy a chance to come in. If Dave, if you have any questions at this point.
Yes, most of my questions are about Gravedigger's role in countering geopolitical security threats.
Mhm.
Uh,
I
but
stole that one. You stole that one from me, Dave.
yeah, sorry, Tony. I knew that's your particular hobby horse. Uh, for
I
for
definitely took that selfie just for my nephews, by the way.
my firstborn son had a Gravedigger t-shirt that he got as a present from a friend of ours when he was like 2 years old, and he was the coolest kid on the playground for a long time with that. Uh,
Amazing.
do these in San Francisco, do these kind of booth gimmicks, do they tie into like security stuff, or is it just like, here, come look at our booth, we have Gravedigger?
Yeah, sometimes it's attention grabbing. Honestly, that's kind of what the grave digger was.
Yeah.
Um, the puppies were at this one booth that it was kind of, they had half their booth that was actually their demo, and then they had the half of the booth with the puppies, and it was kind of a mission to encourage like local adoptions as well.
Oh, okay, that's nice.
So that was nice. It was also kind
It
of,
wasn't like we have to protect these puppies from cyber
no,
attacks.
no. They, a couple shows I've been at, not this one in particular, they've also brought in like the therapy dogs just for like a break.
Mm.
So that's
Yeah,
kind of
that's
nice too.
Yeah.
The goats was like tied to the entire like marketing theme of one of the booths I was at. I think it was a database security company. It wasn't one that I particularly covered the industry. The goats just kind of caught my eye as I was going down the row. Um, but their whole marketing campaign was about like, if you want the goat of data security, here you go.
Okay,
Or
like greatest of
database
all time
security.
then.
Exactly.
I get it. That's a sports reference, which is a good gateway for me. Um, do people like with the kind of technologies obviously advancing faster and faster, are people stressed out? Do they need therapy dogs? Are people more scared or like excited about technology moving forward?
Oh, at these shows, they're definitely excited about it.
Yeah.
A lot of times at the shows, you're kind of having to play the hype police, especially in roles like the one I'm in, where I'm having to like discern through the marketing jargon to figure out the differences between one vendor versus the other in my research.
Okay. You're just telling everyone to chill out.
Sometimes.
I just want to chime in and say I'm very familiar with this thought process as the editor of
Oh
ID.
yeah,
But yes.
because sometimes we have to, you know, the game I've been playing a lot this year at my trade shows is someone will be like, oh yeah, we're using, you know, Gen AI to do XYZ within our platform to do XYZ being different tasks.
Mhm.
And then I'll have them walk me through what they say they're doing. And I'm like, that's not Gen AI. That's just machine learning giving you these three different outputs. That's not actually generating a new insight.
Yeah.
So,
So people are just slapping the label on
oh,
anything, kind of like how everything became like non-gluten for a long time.
exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of like how you see greenwashing or other kinds of things. It's been AI washing the last few years.
Yeah. And
But there are some actual like good uses coming up too.
okay. What are some of these good uses? Is agentic AI one of the good uses? I don't know agentic AI.
Yeah, so the easiest way I've found to explain agentic AI is think of it as like Clippy, basically.
Okay.
We're going back to
Yes, thank
Windows
you. This is
95. Think about if Clippy was spun up to do one specific task to help you with. So for example, Clippy is your guy to help you, you know, write the first draft of your podcast skit if you give him a couple prompts. And he's able to do that at a specific, like, he knows every Monday by 5 p.m., he needs to have done a new podcast script for that's enough content for 30 minutes. So he knows all the parameters. You don't have to like click on him. Like you don't, when you log in on Monday morning, you don't have to click on him and tell him, hey, go do what I need you to do. He will automatically do that. By Monday at 5 p.m., he will come to you without you prompting and be like, here you go.
He's an independent worker.
Exactly.
Doesn't need.
He's like an extension. So they're automated AI agents. So like a Clippy kind of persona who were tasked to do very specific things. And they know to do those specific things in a certain amount of time. And so that's the big area of focus for a lot of AI right now is how to get these AI agents and make them useful in specific uses.
Yeah.
So for security, this can be like an AI agent who knows, okay, if a certain identity is flagged in our business system as, this person has been terminated, it knows to go turn off their credentials in every single system that those credentials appear without someone in HR doing it. Like the moment someone in HR turns an employee's status from active to terminated, the agent would go do that.
Nice.
So
So they're like they're experts. They're specialists in a
yes, they're
specific
very
thing.
specified things and they can be specified to do multiple things. They don't always have to do just one thing, but there's always a specific task that the agents are going to do, whether it's one task or multiple.
You get the sense, or do you already have the sense before RSA that because of a lack of understanding specific functions within the broader scope of AI, so like agentic, for example, that there's like a maybe not from the attendees at the conference, but public in general, there's a kind of like a reflex to immediately not necessarily be mistrustful, but view it in a negative light. If a company were to say we're using AI to streamline our operations or we're using AI to aid our employees in doing X, Y, and Z, because the general public may not understand things like agentic or may confuse and conflate Gen AI and just a lot like typing a prompt. So, is that sort of the case that people
I think
like?
it all depends on how they define how they're using it. So, like you said, if a company comes forward and says, we're implementing AI to do XYZ to help our employees,
Right.
that's different than like, I'm going to toss somebody under the rug here. That's different than Duolingo popping up and saying we're going to be an AI company.
Right.
Because to that gives the negative context of, eliminating human operators and workforce reductions. So that brings about that fear in the public. Whereas a company that comes forward and saying, we're utilizing AI to streamline this part of our business, to make it easier to create these types of documents, to do this specific task 4 times faster. That resonates with the general public because they're like, oh, these are just specific things it can help me with. But they also know that there's probably still humans behind it, because there's always that sense of you want to know that there is still a human in the loop, whereas you don't want to completely give away the agency to an agent yet. That kind of acceptance really hasn't come in the market.
One thing that I was kind of curious about, I see more and more there's a discussion about authenticating the agents. Like increasingly, if we're using agentic AI to communicate or do a task or whatever, you need to know that agent is authorized on behalf of
Yep.
so and so, right? Did that come up a lot at RSA?
That is actually the big topic of the research that I was exploring for the study that we're doing. So we heard it called a couple of things: machine identity and also non-human identity. Those are the two terms you will typically hear when it comes to that kind of use case, where the AI agent is being spun up, or it could even be like a helper account. Like if you guys have a general human resources at idtech.com, well, that user exists in the system just as much as Alex Perala at idtech.com, David. So that ID is not, that human resources one, the general one, isn't treated the same way by traditional identity and access management systems. It doesn't know what to do with those kinds of users. So it wouldn't know, like if an AI agent is created, it would be the same as like that general HR email. And
So
so the
people,
identity,
sorry, Danielle, are people worried that there's going to be like mole AI agents like from
kind of,
foreign places?
because it's kind of the same way. Whereas if you keep old passwords in a system, those can be taken by hackers and then used to get into the system. It would be the same way they could take over like an inactive AI agent that still has all its privileges and use that as a way to get into a business network. And so you need an NHI system or a machine identity system that can verify that, okay, these are the proper privileges for human resources at ID Talk, or AI agent 13. I don't know how these things are named. That these are the functions they're supposed to perform. These are their typical behaviors. And then if anything goes out of whack or looks suspicious, it can be escalated to an alert.
I just want to jump in here and really urge everyone listening to, can we please go with machine identity? Because I want to save non-human identity for like your cats and you know,
Yeah, and aliens.
all kinds of, aliens, all kinds of non-human entities. If we
The
may.
penguins.
Yeah,
The penguins.
the undead.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, mine are darker.
But yeah, that's interesting. It's something that I mean we increasingly have to think about, like just like you said, Daniel, like if you can have these amazing automation tools where you can create something that does a whole bunch of complex tasks, and then everyone just gets used to working with it. and then suddenly some adversarial person like gets control of it, that is a serious problem. I mean,
Yeah,
that's like it's much harder to pose as a human in an organization than it is to pose as just like some kind of chatbot.
Commandeer,
exactly.
like a
Mhm.
You can
bot.
be the IT guy or um, those kinds of things too. And a lot of times what happens is, some of these machine identities or these other connections are tied to a human user.
Mm.
And for whatever reason, the human user account is, you know, properly controlled and, terminated, deleted, whatever is necessary after they're gone. But it's those further connections, like if an AI agent was specifically tied to that human user, that's how it just goes inactive, but it still exists. And so those are the kinds of things that a hacker or a bad actor are going to be looking for because they know they have some kind of privileges. And if they can find just that one entry point, then they can work their way up to whatever information they want.
So you have to teach the AI butler to also terminate themselves.
Exactly. If that part isn't taught or isn't properly managed by a machine identity management tool, then you're in trouble.
Another thing I wanted to bring up, I don't really fully understand this stuff myself, but have you heard of Pliny the Liberator? I think his name is. Have you heard of this?
No.
This is a guy, I know him from Twitter. Like, I don't know him, I follow him, and his whole shtick is trying to hack every new AI chatbot that comes out. He
Okay.
tries to get it to give him a recipe for meth, like recite rap lyrics, like do things that it is not allowed to
Not
do.
supposed to do.
Yeah, and he cracks it every single time. But it's not just a joke to him. Like he's like, this is a serious AI safety issue, and I don't really fully understand how he did it, but he seems to have come up with like um, elaborate prompts that somehow got seeded into the AI training process so that
Mhm.
anything
Mhm.
that was trained on data that includes these prompts, it's like a magic phrase he
Yeah.
can say that will just hack it instantly. It's really
Yeah.
electric.
Yeah. This was actually brought up in a breakfast that I was at where one vendor was walking through different threat intelligence vectors that they've seen and attack methods. And it was this exact thing where um, basically a hacker can just run through a series of fake prompts through an LLM.
Mhm.
And a lot of the codes being generated by some of the bigger LLMs will hallucinate and come back with false code. Like if you were, it'll come back with what it says is a certain code vector. But if you go into like GitHub or any of those other tools, um, it will show that this thing doesn't exist, that it's a complete hallucination.
Mhm.
However, once the hacker knows that that is coming up in the LLMs as an option, they will include that code in their malware. And then when some poor overburdened coder tries to save a little bit of time and generate some code in one of the Gen AI models and gets that same hallucination and then puts it into whatever bit they're coding, that hacker automatically has an immediate perfect malware pack that can go in and take it down. And
Again,
it's been
it's a
actively
great
used.
time to be a hacker.
Like it, like Gen AI is great for some things, but also you just trust but verify, man.
Are we at a stage where, or maybe this is it just this industry is changing so quickly that we're never going to move past this stage where companies are racing to implement AI in whatever way that they can, some of them to replace humans and some of them to supplement whatever they're doing, that they're not quite focusing on security enough, and you have increasing threats of organized crime now. They will be looking to exploit this like race to implement more AI.
Yeah. As far as implementing AI, it's going to always kind of be a game of whack-a-mole. Like, we're going to always, hackers make it a little bit ahead, then we catch up. So I think that trajectory is always going to be common. That's just how the security domain itself has been as long as humans have existed.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as getting rid of the humans or the security teams behind it, I don't see a fully automated security team coming to play. I don't see a team of security-based AI agents taking over. There will still be some human security operations teams who will have to be there to verify. They may be augmented by agents, but it won't do a full replacement.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's just a little too much. Everyone's seen the Terminator movies, and so there's always that fear in their heads.
Assuming you were on the side of the humans.
Well, you always have to tell the Gen AIs thank you. Don't forget that.
Okay.
Tony and I have actually joked about this.
Yeah.
We do use independently, we use AI for some to help automate some stuff. And
Oh yeah, same here.
I always say please and thank you, and Tony always yells at it and swears and calls it an idiot when it messes things up and stuff. And I think we know which one of us is going to survive the coming AI apocalypse.
Yeah,
Well, it's going to come get you, Tony.
I'm done for. I got to start exercising so I can run.
We haven't mentioned deepfakes at all yet, but I feel like that must have come up at RSA.
Oh yeah. It came up, but it kind of came up as more of an example. That workforce identity management piece that I was talking about, deepfakes would be the kind of threat that workforce IAM solution would be to solve.
Mhm.
So if there was like a deepfake who went through the entire remote interviewing process, got hired, and then trying to get onboarded with the company software or with like company equipment, those kinds of hardware tokens and the processes that they've put into place were to prevent that kind of attack, to truly verify that the individual person is who they say they are, that they exist, and that it is the correct person. So it would come up as a type of threat vector, but then you would just see how these newer either identity processes, verification processes would ensure that the person who is being verified and authenticated truly was who they say they were and that they weren't a deep fake.
Hmm.
So the deepfakes apply for a job and go through the whole interview process and then get hired?
Yeah,
And
there
is
have
that their
been
end game then to get all these credentials that they can give to the hackers?
no. So basically, what happens is, the hacker can create an entire AI persona to go through remote interviews, fake resumes, fake credentials, gets hired, gets verified, and then in the onboarding process, as you can imagine with like a remote company, like there's a company laptop coming to them. There's company access credentials coming to them. And so then the hacker would ensure that they're the one who gets control of that equipment. And again, easy access for them into the company system.
Mhm.
So that's the whole point of that kind of deep fake.
Yeah. Would they ever like just go undercover for years as an employee of the company and just never give up their cover
There was
until they...
actually a huge ring of North Korean hackers identified as working for a managed services cybersecurity company who for years they were under the guise of pretending they were remote contractors, but they were North Korean citizens.
That was a cybersecurity company.
Yeah, and so they had been siphoning data for years.
If you can dream it, you can do it.
Yep.
Just fake it till you make it, baby.
Sending company laptops to North Korea and not asking more questions.
This wasn't a company laptop situation. This was one that was more of a like just remote access.
Right. Sorry, Alex, that reminds me, I sent some stuff to North Korea recently.
Yeah, Tony told me to send a bunch of laptops to North Korea
I should
Oopsie.
look
and don't ask any questions.
We need to restrict his agency somehow.
Candidate Post has expanded its reach, hasn't it?
I was just as surprised as you guys.
So I wanted to go back to Danielle. You mentioned that there's like a lot of AI hype. There's a lot of like mention of AI where they have no business doing so, which
Mhm.
I also see. Obviously, there's a lot of press releases that come across my desk. Um, I wonder if you could characterize like how much of what you saw at RSA or what you see in general is kind of like bull and how much is real. And also, I guess there's also gray areas where like a phrase that I see so much now that I never used to see is AI powered facial recognition or AI
Yeah.
facial recognition, which I think is just facial recognition.
Yeah, that's
And
what it
it's
is.
Redundant.
it is AI. It's just like a branding thing.
It
So
is.
yeah.
It's a lot of times when I see someone say AI powered or AI enabled, it's machine learning,
Mhm.
which I'm like, yeah, the terms are a little bit interchangeable, but if all you're doing is aggregating a data set and then, spitting back a synopsis or a specific insight to me, that's just machine learning. If
Mhm.
you're just learning over time, and that's what you're calling AI powered because you're learning over time and gathering context, that's machine learning. Um, when it comes to figuring out the bull versus the use cases, for me, it really comes down to, are you just saying you're using AI or are you actually able to give me concrete uses like what we've been talking through, where I can see where an AI agent is useful or where there is actual new knowledge, new policy, new content coming about because of a prompt or because of something that was ingested into a platform.
Mhm.
That I'm looking at and I'm like, okay, that is actual artificial intelligence. That is taking all these different points and coming up with a specific insight. But if all you're telling me is, oh, yeah, we use AI, and then you're just showing me an auto generated list or auto categorizing or meta tagging or automated whatever, well, then you're just automated. That's not artificial intelligence. That's not coming up with something else.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if I can assign a specific percentage to that because you have to look at it versus, are you just generalizing and just saying AI because you think you have to? Or are you giving me actual concrete things that layman's people who aren't entrenched in this technology day in and day out, can understand where it's helpful?
I think that sounds pretty fair. Um, Man, we spent a lot of time talking about AI. I didn't expect that, but I guess that's RSA. Were there any other big, like, huge talking points, or was that really kind of a dominant? I wouldn't be surprised
That
if that
was
was the
really a
dominant.
dominant one. Of course, the machine identity NHI point, that was a big focus area for me, just because we are adding that to our research portfolio this year.
Mhm.
I noted it at Identiverse as like an area that we really needed to add in. So we're really excited about that report coming up.
Well, I'm looking forward to reading it, and we'll certainly be covering that topic in general going forward on ID Tech. So, looking forward to that, and thank you as always for coming on ID Talk and sharing your insights with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be Dave's introduction into the industry.
Yeah, thanks so
Yes,
much,
welcome,
Danielle.
Dave.
And
I hope
it
we didn't blow his brain too much.
it's been blown. It's and also a privilege to meet Oreo, the most famous cat in biometrics and security tech.
Yep, we'll share a
Shout out to
deepfake
Kim.
generated image of Oreo in our write-up for this episode. So stay tuned for that.
And Cammy too.
Cammy too.
And
Yeah, don't forget about Cami.